Okay, family. Hotel. Shalom to the brothers that's on the panel with me. This your brother Matthew Daniels, aka Ampu, aka the Chosen Few. Y'all see the topic is evolution real and is Christianity any good? Now I'm gonna let y'all know right off the top, the individual that was supposed to be here discussing the pros of Christianity, he may have his track shoes on. He hasn't shown up yet. But I'm gonna tell y'all, if he show up, we're definitely gonna go into that topic of is Christianity any good? Now, we may not touch on that topic if he doesn't show up because the only three people on the panel right now disagree with it. We may just have a bashing session, you know, but it would be better for us and for you guys if there was both sides to the topic that you could actually hear. You know, information is always best when you hear both sides of the story. But we will discuss the evolution topic, and if the other brother comes in, we're going to discuss both of them. So before I let the brothers introduce themselves, I'll let you all know that I am for evolution. I believe that is real. I believe that it's legit. I believe that it's factual, and I also believe that based on the evidence that we have. Based on the evidence that we have, the theory of evolution best explains how organisms develop and how life changes on this planet. No other explanation that I've heard adequately explains the multitude of species that I see and the changes that takes place in the species. So I'm pro evolution, and that's going to be my stance throughout this. Now, if the brothers present me something, I'm always happy to say I'm wrong, and if I have to change my opinion, I don't mind. We have to stop with the belief that we're 100% right and nothing can change our mind. If the brothers show me where I'm wrong at in any of the information, I'll humbly switch up and I'll humbly change. I'm just trying to find the truth. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it to the brother Coy. I'm going to let him introduce himself. I'm going to let him briefly say a few words, a brief introduction, and just go ahead and tell the people your stance on evolution, why you agree or disagree, and then we're going to pass it over to the brother Blackburn. So Coy, you got the floor, my brother.
Yes, sir. My stance on evolution. I'm against evolution only because I think it forces you to have to. You have to have a lot of you have to have millennium going by in order for evolution to work. And in the framework of my faith, I don't believe the Earth is that old. So I think evolution only works if you can say we're going back millions of years, and these changes that we see are not visible in a man's lifetime, if that makes sense.
Okay, brother Blackburn, I think Coy's finished with his introduction. So if you don't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself, say a few introductory words about yourself, let the people know who you are, and give us your stance on evolution. Okay, the brother Blackburn, he may have a few things going on, so I'm just going to continue to talk. We don't want too much downtime. Just Blackburn, if you can hear me, whenever you're able to come in, introduce yourself, and just give us some of your background and tell us where you stand on the topic of evolution. So what I'll first say is that when you're dealing with evolution, this kind of came up when I was talking to the brothers early. I personally think that the individuals that don't agree with evolution um, don't fully understand exactly what evolution is talking about. Now, I'm not going to profess to be some profound scholar on evolution as if I have all the answers or if I can explain it in its totality, but I do know enough to where I'm satisfied with the evidence that is for evolution. But one of the first things I want to go to, because the brother said that one of the reasons why he don't believe in evolution is because evolution takes millions of years, which I totally agree with that. And the brother said that he doesn't agree with the millions of years. So first, I just want to ask, how old do you think the Earth is, brother Coy? Because I didn't assume that you disagreed that the Earth has been around for billions of years. So before we go into it, how old are you saying that the Earth most likely is?
I'm not good on the timeline, brother, but I think according to Tanakh, it's like 6,000 or 7,000 years old. 6 or
Oh,
7.
okay. So you
Or
how
something like that. Yeah, I could be wrong, but I believe 6 or 7.
okay, let's go here, because we'll never get anywhere if oh, hold on. I think Blackburn coming in. Before we get too deep, I want to let him introduce himself so the people know who he is. So Blackburn, me and Coy, we've introduced ourselves. We've basically stated our positions on the topic of evolution. So I'm going to hand you the mic. I want you to just introduce yourself, say who you are, a little introductory words, and explain to the people your position on evolution, be it for or against, and why.
Okay. Well, my name is G Rod, and my position is against the mainstream understanding of evolution.
Wait, I don't want to cut y'all. Are you watching the video like in the background?
Hold on one
It,
second.
it's like a echo, it's feedback when you're talking.
Give me 1 second, y'all.
All right, yeah. Do you hear that, Coin?
Yes, sir. Like an echo. You got an echo going on.
Yeah, and it's actually two avatars for you. Okay, one of them just left.
There you go.
All right.
Are you?
That's better. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. You have the floor, brother. Go ahead.
Okay, well, my name is Gerard, and my position on evolution, I'm against mainstream evolution, which means that in my understanding, my current understanding, it implies that a man uh, came from something else other than a man. I do understand adaptation, which means that a man adapts to his particular climate, to his particular society, to his particular surroundings, and adaptation is something that I prescribe to. But in regards to a man coming from a different type of species to another type of species is something that I'm against. I don't think it has any basis. I know that we're only looking in a very small window. So, I've only seen 36 years of life. They only got history books for a certain amount of time of life. So, no man is able to witness something that happened so many millennia ago. However, in the current state that we're living in, it's male and female, human, Homo sapiens, however you want to put it. And no one has seen, even in 2019, something different than that. Is that what we have of this very day? Humans have been recognizable for millennia, and that's where we at. So that's my position on the matter.
Okay. All right. Well, why I wanted to go at first, because this is one of the main reasons why I agree with the evolutionary theory. And Corey, we're going to touch back on that age of the Earth here momentarily. But we have what people got to understand is we actually have a fossil record, and for the life of me, I don't understand how we can get around the fossil record. Let's say humans that we have today, we are classified by the scientific community as Homo sapiens sapiens. I believe everybody on the panel can agree to that, and if not, they can let me know when that time comes up. And I believe that everybody out there that has read a textbook knows that humans are Homo sapiens sapiens. Now they classify us as Homo sapiens sapiens because we have a certain cranial capacity, we have a certain skull structure, we have a certain skeletal structure from our spine to our feet to our hands to our, our arms and our legs. Basically, you can tell that we are all Homo sapiens sapiens because our skeletal structures and our cranial capacity and our ability to have muscle on the bone is in a particular way that distinguishes us from other species. Now, when you look back into the fossil record and you go back 10,000 years, 20,000 years, 100,000 years, 200,000 years, when you get to around, not exactly, but when you get to around 300,000 years, you no longer find Homo sapiens sapiens in the fossil record, as if before 300,000 years ago, there was no Homo sapiens sapien. And what you have is what the proponents of the evolutionary theory consider to be the early humans. A human is not just a Homo sapiens sapien, but a human is a classification of several different species within the Homo sapiens sapien chain. So you have the Neanderthal. Most people have heard of a Neanderthal. A Neanderthal is a certain type of human, but a Neanderthal is not a Homo sapiens sapien. And you also have something that's called a Homo erectus. A Homo erectus. Now, a Homo erectus is a human, but it's not a Homo sapiens sapien. Now, the Homo erectus skeletons and cranial capacity is extremely similar to the Homo sapiens sapien, but it does have slight differences. And you notice that the Homo erectus fossils predate Homo sapiens sapien fossils. And what evolution purports is that we evolved from these Homo erectus, the Homo erectus species. And before Homo erectus, you may have the Homo habilis, et cetera, et cetera. But just dealing with that fact alone, if you don't have Homo sapiens sapiens in the fossil record older than 300,000 years ago, but you do have these other species, Homo erectus, that existed before 300,000 years ago, that's similar but slightly different from the Homo sapiens sapien. Doesn't it make more sense that the Homo sapiens sapien evolved from the Homo erectus? Or if not that, where are you saying the Homo sapiens sapien came from? How did the fully formed Homo sapiens sapien as we are today, with the eyes, the nose, the lips, the ears, the hands, the feet, where did we come from? How did we get here in the form that we're in if we didn't evolve from something that predates us with a similar form? And I'll pass the mic to Brother Coy, and I'll let you address that, brother. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Okay, I wrote a few notes down while you were talking, brother. So I don't mean not to answer your immediate question, but the first thing that came, genetic mutation. Okay, my opinion is that what we consider evolution is not necessarily evolution, it's just genetic mutation. For instance, we know two dark-skinned people can have a albino child come out with blue eyes, red hair, blonde hair, features that don't look African whatsoever. Two Africans, let's just say it like that, can have a European-looking child. That's genetic mutation, and it happened in one lifetime, in one generation. And so, like with people going to colder climates and then getting the thinner nose, and people in the warmer climates having the white. I don't think. What was my second note? Skull differences. Skull differences are still to this day. You talked about the Homo sapiens sapien, and honestly, brother, I don't know the differences between those things. But you asked me how did we get here, and it makes me want to say, which was one of my notes, was creation. Creation. I think always has to tie into evolution, man, because you asked the question I wanted to ask, which was, what did we evolve from? If we evolved from tadpoles or whatever kind of aquatic creatures or whatever, single cell organisms, I believe, if we evolve from this, that means whoever created everything created that simplicity, and it was supposed to evolve. Now, I see that nowhere in any text, and that means there would have to be just some unknown truth, some mystery out there. But I believe in creationism, which means this book that I'm holding, it didn't just get here just by happenstance. It didn't evolve from one page and turn into 100. I mean, somebody created it, formed it, fixed it, published it, and sent it out, and it's got the design and everything like it was meant to have. And I think that's what life is. Man was created by his creator, and then he reproduced after his own kind, just like every other thing on this planet. Uh, you don't get grapes from an apple tree. You see what I'm saying? So, and then carbon dating validity. I'm not a proponent of carbon dating because, of course, it's going to throw things into the millions of years. And then, based on my faith, I think by doing that, just like saying there's other life forms out there, well, that means there's different evolutions going on, and who knows where, all over. I mean, it's something that you can't grasp, is what I'm saying. Because even in your opening statement, you had to ask a question: where do we come from? Well, according to what I believe, I have that answer. And according to evolution, you can't really say, because if you can go millions of years prior to your existence now and say you came from this, who's to say what happened millions of years before that you don't know? I mean, it's like, when did evolution actually start? That goes into creationism or the origins of life as we know it. And so they have to have some kind of tie. And I'll stop rambling, brother.
All right, Brother Blackburn, you got something?
Yeah, I'm kind of paying attention and listening to what Coy said and trying to process all the information between you and Coy. But I would have to agree. The biggest flaw in evolution, but it's science. So science doesn't have a purpose or a reason to answer that question. The biggest flaw would be, where did the tadpole come from? The one that we ever evolved from. Where did it come from? And no matter what we do, the organism, the microorganism, the atom, something somewhere had to create the very first part, the smallest part of what we are now. And evolution, in my opinion, is the very vehicle used to deny that there is an actual creator, because it appears that evolution and creator doesn't go hand in hand. But when you say you have bones dating back before mankind to Homo sapiens and different things of that nature, like the great ape, I would still have to ask you, we are people that's dying. Billions of us die every single day, and billions of us is born every single day. So when you say you have a fossil record, I will have to challenge that to show some type of proof of a real fossil record and not just bones. I believe there's a difference. There's obvious a fossil record of human beings. It's not just bones. Now, you may have had a human being that had a skull crushed. You may have, a boxer, football player, different things of these individuals and the climates and the activities that they was involved in. And even at some of these museums, that'll show a elongated head. And you would think that that's a different species, but it's very well known in the delivery room, a head could easily be formed and be shaped in a weird way. So just because we have bones here, and I want you to clarify a fossil record, if you understand what my speech is. What I'm saying is, does bones signify a race or a community or a giant group of people? You have people that's born deformed to this very day. but I can't say that the deformity of an individual is a race or a group of individuals because we found a bone with a guy that got 6 toes, or a guy that got an extra hole in his skull or something of that nature. Uh, when we say we got bones of Homo sapiens, it's obvious what we're talking about. Any day of the week, for thousands of years, we got bones and a record, but we don't have that same type of variety given to us when this is my opinion, because again, I'm not an expert in the topic, but I don't think you have that. Because when you say a million people is not a million people is born every single day. A million people die every single day. So the word million is it's a very small number when you're talking about the reproduction of any type of species. It's the same thing with fish and shrimp and cows and sheep and goats. You have millions of representation of these different bone structures when these species or these individuals die off. But when we're talking about things that evolve, we're looking for transitional bones and bone structures. And even if you found a thousand set of bones that's different from a Homo sapien bones, is that enough to say that this community thrived and lived and dwelled and literally ran planet Earth until they evolved into a Homo sapien? I just kind of find that very hard to believe. And looking at the Neanderthal, it's certain qualities that particular species had, according to the scientific notion. To say that we're not actually evolving, it'll be more like we devolving, because they would be more stronger and more able to deal with the climate than we are. A lot of us wouldn't make it right now in certain areas of the world. We would die off immediately. So to sit up there and say that this particular group of species thrived and lived and made a home in these communities, and we're not even able to do that, for me, it just hurts the evolution story. But it's on you, Matt.
Okay. I appreciate what you brothers presented. And you have a lot of good questions, a lot of valid questions. And I respect your positions, and I respect your questions, and I respect your statements. Now, I may not have enough time to address every single point that both brothers brought up, because I don't want to too much during this, but I want to hit a few key points. Now, what I'm gonna go back to is Corey first. If I heard you correctly, your opinion on the better explanation for where man came from, or how we got here, would be the Bible text that you subscribe to, and you made a reference that you haven't seen the concept of evolution written in any text. The first thing I would have to say is, we have to understand that even our ancestors, especially when you go back thousands of years, their scientific literacy and scientific understanding was not what it is today. Their ability to test, experiment, observe is not what it is today. They didn't have the instruments that we have. They didn't have the technology that we have, and they didn't have the information that we have, because individuals are able to build on information that was acquired from previous generations. So if ancient civilization didn't understand things that we understand right now today, I would assume in my worldview that makes perfectly logical sense. I would assume that we would be more scientifically literate than a ancient civilization. And to even touch on your point, your evolution itself doesn't speak on how life itself was created. It speaks to what happens to the life after life is already here, the changes that life goes through. And when you was talking about how climate and environment can cause things to adapt, that is evolution in and of itself. Now, you may disagree with certain aspects of evolution, but that statement right there is an evolutionary statement. Evolution is about adaptation. Evolution is about change. Evolution is about organisms being affected by their environment, by their climates, by the genetic the gene pool that they're able to reproduce amongst, and even is affected by the genetic mutation that you mentioned. All of those are aspects of evolution, because evolution technically it means to change. Now, I heard what Brother Blackburn said about devolving. Technically, there is no devolution. There is no devolving. Evolution isn't saying that things get better, is saying that things change. So even if something, even if it's a negative change, let me say it like that, even if you see something that can be perceived as a negative adaptation or a negative change, that in and of itself will still be evolution. There's no direction in evolution. You understand what I'm saying? There's no direction in evolution. Evolution simply means to change. So if something got worse, or if you perceive that something got worse, that in and of itself still would be against evolution. And I noticed that my brother has said that he's against the carbon dating. So I understand that. So but I would have to say, if that's the case, anything before the written record, then you can't put a date on anything. If you don't, not necessarily carbon dating, but if you disagree with dating systems as a whole, then it'll be real difficult for you to have a conversation about history that happened before individuals was writing the date, how we know the date now. It will be hard for you to go into one of those conversations, because as soon as you do, in order to make your point make sense, you're going to have to start using dates. And when you do, those dates are going to be coming from these systems that you don't agree with. So it'll be hard to have a conversation about history. But what I want to say to Blackburn about the fossil record, bones are, that is what I'm talking about with the fossil record. If you find the skeleton of something, then that's what I mean by the fossil record. Now, you said that you don't believe in evolution because there's millions of people, or possibly billions of people, that could die every day or every month, and there's all kind of species that are dying every day, right? If all of those bones, right? If all of those bones from every human, every bird, every elephant, every giraffe, every tiger, every bear, every lion, every fish, if the remains of everything that has ever lived has died, that has died, would still be here, we will be overrun. And we have to understand that things decompose and things break down and things go back to the earth. So you would never have the skeletal fossil of every single thing, or every single person, or every single animal that has ever lived. And even now today, people find new species every day, be it a new species of bird or a new species of fish. And they don't have to find a million of these things to say, oh, this is a new species. Because we have something, brother, we have something that's kind of miraculous right now too. We also have DNA. So you can check the DNA of a Neanderthal and you can tell that they are a different species from the Homo sapiens sapiens. Now, when you look at it, Homo sapiens sapiens inhabit basically almost every area of the planet that we are on right now today. But when you're talking about Neanderthal and you're talking about Homo erectus, and you're talking about Homo habilis, and you're talking about Australopithecus, and you're talking about these early humans, a lot of them are geographic specific. They are in certain geographic locations. They didn't exist in Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, South America, Central America. You will only be able to find them in certain areas. Just like right now today, you can't find every species of tiger everywhere on the world. And you can't find it. We know lions exist, right? But we can't find millions of lion bones on every single continent in the world. It just doesn't work like that. And what I would like to say about the creation of life, I'm gonna throw this in, then I'm gonna pass it. I always kind of look at things like this too. If individuals deal with the theory of evolution and that species evolve from other species, and again, like I say, if we have these fossils, these bones of these early humans, and an individual such as myself would say that we evolved from these, right? By means of natural selection, by means of adaptation, by means of depending on what climate they're in, et cetera, and someone disagrees with that, even if you believe in creation, as in a creator created man, I'm curious as to the specifics. I'm saying that species changed gradually over time from one species to the next. Homo erectus eventually evolved into what we have today. But if you're not saying that, how did this creation of man and animals take place if it didn't go from a single cell organism and slowly change over time? Specifically, what are we talking about? Because I don't want to gloss over. Are we saying that God took dirt and molded man and made man and then took a rib from that? I mean, what are we specifically talking about? Just so we can have a working understanding about what everyone is saying that human beings came from. And Coy, I'll pass it back to you, brother. I hope I wasn't too long.
No, sir. All right. Let me look at these notes here. All right, brother. You said technology stood out to me when you talk about technology. You said we didn't have the technology that we do now in order to know these things that we know now. And it made me think about something. How did the pyramids get built? You know, if there was no electricity or no, diesel fuel, engines, cranes, backhoes, if there was no machinery or no technology, how were they able to do such great feats in such ancient civilizations? And then I also thought about when you said technology, the last 100 or so years, man, let's just say the last 100, from, let me say 120. So from about 2019, or let's say 2020 to the year 1900, almost for the most part, maybe let me go back further, man, 150 years, all right, max. In 150 years, the world has went from candlelight, no electricity in the home, no refrigeration system, no mass transit, no airplane, no submarine, computer, what we're doing right now, no cameras, no television, no radio. I don't think 150 years now, no radio, people still riding horseback everywhere they go. And so just within this last 2 centuries, man, we done seen the world explode as far as what you would want to call evolution. But how could evolution work that way? How could millions of years go by and single cell organisms turn into double cell organisms, which turn into who knows whatever else, which turn into eventually Homo sapiens sapiens in 2019, and then all of a sudden we finally get it. And then boom, in 100 years, things just skyrocket. So that it seems like a wave in a pattern if evolution is true. Okay, you talked about different species, brother. So Homo sapiens sapien, Homo erectus. I'm not well versed on those things, but when I look at species, take for example like a horse and a zebra, uh, even a wildebeest. You know, when I look at these species, one is black and white with stripes, one is a little bigger, kind of ugly with a mane, one is more fair, whatever, sleek skin, but they're all the same. In my mind, based on what I see, they all seem to come from the same parent. So it's not that things evolve more than things water down. That's how I'm looking at it. And when we talk about evolution, once again, evolution is trying to take you back to the beginning of life, which is creation, because it can't tell you life started as a single cell organism without giving you an explanation. I mean, who's to say? How can you? What out there goes from one? Is there some besides a virus, man? You see what I'm saying? What thing starts off as one organism and one cell and just multiplies itself over time? Besides a baby in the womb. And that's all by design, because the woman was designed to create. See, these are things that can't be explained. You could try to say, okay, one cell turned to two, which turned to a billion, which turned into a little frog, which turned into a man eventually. But what you're trying to do is explain the motion of how life goes, like you said. But what winds up happening is it takes you back to some kind of origin, and that origin don't have no basis. Now, I'm gonna let Brother Blackburn go, but you talked about did man just create? I mean, the Most High just create man out of dirt? No, but we know we're made up of water, minerals. We breathe air. Okay, these things are elements, and so it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that we were designed from the elements. Okay, but speaking about the child in the womb, that's a mystery. That's a mystery. Nobody can explain how that could take place. Even the seed itself, the apple seed goes in the ground, it comes up, and it does not bear pears. It don't bear plums. It only bears apples. It produces after its own kind because it was designed that way. It never will evolve. The apple will never evolve. The system of how the apple seed goes back into the ground, and just like the rain cycle, and just like the cycle of the same stars that you see in the Old Testament to Tanakh, the same sun and moon. I mean, these things are not evolving and changing into something different. If anything, like I was saying earlier, the two Africans have a albino child, and so now things get watered down. But not to be long-winded, man, if we're trying to explain evolution, or say evolution is just the explanation of life, well, evolution also does a poor job of trying to explain the start of life, or where life began at, because if it's saying it began at a single cell organism, well, that's some 19 whatever 20th 19th century scientific term that just come about. I'd have to see that in ancient records where somebody believed that, and if they didn't believe it then, and we blame it on the technology now, we have to look in the same time of technological advancement. Where were our people at? What were we doing? Who were we subjected to? Whose foot was upon our neck? You see what I'm saying? So whenever my brothers get very deep into the scientific and the astrological and just things that are far outside of our explanation, like the creation of life, because you make a good point that we just come out of a rib of a woman. No, but we were designed. We were designed by an omnipotent being who was a designer. Like I say, I got this book. It didn't come, even when I went to go buy it, it wasn't just on the shelf out of happenstance. Yeah, somebody put it there, but somebody put this together, as with all the books on your shelf. So creationism basically is just a masterful design, because this design stays in motion to this day. And you don't see no half human, half apes. You don't see no whatever, you don't see an intermingling of species where they're halfway into being one but halfway out. You don't see reptile mammals or whatever other thing I could think of. So evolution in and of itself is lacking, because it don't give you it's a true origin. It tries to give you an explanation for the start, but the start doesn't explain what brought it to be, if that makes sense.
Blackburn, it's on you, brother.
Excellent. First off, man, I really love this platform. This is an excellent platform. I know, well, we all know that we all are not going to agree with each other's premises and explanations and things like that, but we're still able to have this conversation. And that is critical because no matter what, we are the people is going to learn something or gain something from it. So I'm not here to make anyone a Genesis chapter 1 believer, and I highly doubt Matt is trying to make someone an evolution believer. But we are trying to explain our positions and where we come from based on our knowledge and our experience. I think we all would say we're not experts in the field, but instead of me going on a rant, let me just stop right there. We're not experts in the field. And with me not being experts in the field, I can only go by the logical conclusion. And logic tells me that, as Coy said, that there's no proof. It's literally a part of the imagination. For an example, in your head, how do a dinosaur sound? And the reason why I said it like that is because your imagination is going to tell you how a dinosaur sounds. The closest thing that we have to a dinosaur is an alligator or a turtle. But yet, when we listen to them at their most angriest and violent and predatory state, they don't say or make any type of noise. And of course, again, I'm not a scientist, and I'm pretty sure scientists are probably turning over in their graves if they heard something of that nature. But just based on a logical explanation, we in our head already got what a dinosaur sounded like, you know, different things of that nature. And it's the same thing for Neanderthal. We got a understanding based on what we think. We study these bone records because that's what we got. We got bone records. They didn't communicate with us. They didn't leave an explanation of who they were. They didn't leave no footprints. Only thing they left was a bone structure. And from bone structures, for an example, Lucy was deemed a pregnant woman, was deemed the first human. But in modern times, Lucy has been deemed as a chimp that just fell out of a tree. So with us having bones, humans are able to leave a record, and they're able to leave proof of what we are, who we are, what we were 1,000 years ago, what we were 2,000 years ago. We left proof of that. And the proof is not found in the bones. We left proof of the communities that we build and the societies that we build and the way we communicated with each other. And it appears to me that the only proof that we have of other types of species is only bones. And bones don't talk. So with that being said, that bones does not talk. We have to draw conclusions. We got to get people in white coats that make more money than me to tell us what that means. And we got to go and look at our mom and look at our dad and say, well, I know you're human, but your great-great-grandfather wasn't. And it logically, for me, it doesn't add up. And I don't want to say it like that because I'm trying to explain it as scientifically as I possibly can. But science tells you that they have to do one very critical and crucial thing. They have to actually view. And a lot of people have to come to the conclusion that we have never viewed anything else other than Homo sapiens. But it's on you, Matt.
Okay. All right. What I like to do on this part, if it's good with you two brothers, so we can hit a few points quick. If y'all don't mind, I would like to have Coy open his mic for a minute, and then him just have like a little 2-minute discussion about one thing, and then I want to do the same thing with you, Blackburn, and then I'll let Coy just expound for a little bit. I just want to hit a few key points and see how you brothers feel about it. Y'all cool with that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, brother Coy. Okay. what I was saying earlier about evolution doesn't attempt to explain uh, uh, where life originated, right? And honestly, I think that's kind of a conundrum. But I would like to ask you, if how do you feel about this, right? If the planet, man, animals and whatnot, you alluded to that book. If we exist in such a capacity that one would have to assume that we had a creator or a designer who made us this way, and God, how an individual that reads the Torah would have to understand God as an omnipresent, omnipotent, all-powerful entity that created everything. I would have to say that God is more wonderfully made than any man, fish, bird, or tree. So if the man, fish, bird, and tree and the planet is so exquisite that we have to have a creator, who's the creator of God? And if God needs no creator, why does man need one? Go ahead.
All right.
Oh, man, that's a good one. But go ahead.
I mean, let's see. Who is God's creator? Well, if he's omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, and, is there a word for always existent? I guess. I mean, he's the beginning and the end. If that's the truth, if God is outside of time, let me say it like that, then he needs no creation. But what else could create such massive? I mean, just look at it. All this is by design. The man's mind was created for him to even design the things, the chairs we sit on. You know, the refrigeration system, wasn't that created by a slave? I mean, these are men's mind, and so that tells a tale that man was created with some kind of intimate, perfect design. Excuse me. It wasn't just happenstance. Like, you know, it wasn't a snowball effect. You know, one cell then turned into two, which turned into 1,000. And I might not be answering your question, man, but yeah, ask it again,
Yeah, I
brother.
don't want to cut out. What I'm saying is, I often hear people use the point that because life is so complex that it proves that there must be a designer because life is complex. You use the example of the book. You said that like the book didn't just come out of nowhere. Someone had to put that book together. So what I'm saying is God is more complex than the book, and God is more complex than you and me. So if we are so complex, it proves the necessity of a creator or a designer. Then God's complexity, if that's the logic, God's complexity should denote a designer as well.
Okay.
So if exquisite design proves a designer, then who is the designer of God?
I see what you're saying, brother. Okay. Well, then I have to go back to the idea of time. We are finite creatures, so we think in the essence of time. We know eventually we're gonna die. We feel ourselves getting older. We see our children grow older. From 0 to 10 is a big spike in how you look, you know, and from 10 to 20 is a whole nother spike. So uh, saying who designed God is putting something that's outside of our own human capacity, mind capacity, trying to fit it into. It's like how my brother Ricky would say. He'll look at the Tanakh and it says, "Well, God sits upon His throne or whatnot." He'll say, "Well, who gave God? God got a butt? You know, He sit down somewhere. Well, does He also use the restroom? You know, because it's like you're trying to make God something that a man can grasp his mind around." And I think that's what we're trying to do by saying, "Who created God?" That's like saying, "Who created light?" I mean, uh, if there was not a designer designing light, we wouldn't be able to perceive light. It's more simple to me than I think we're trying to make it.
No, but that's what I'm challenging. If I just flow with me, if you're saying that because we are how we are, that proves that someone created us, right? So far I'm correct, right?
Well,
Yes.
can I have a
Yeah,
chance at it?
yeah.
We have, in my opinion, we have to define what words are. We have to define the words that we are using. The word create doesn't mean the word make or design or build. Create is a little bit more complex than just taking some Legos and building a castle. That's what we are able to do. We're able to design and build our surroundings, but we're not able to create. When we use the word create, we're talking about something that was made out of absolutely nothing. So in order for me to, I don't even have the capacity to create. And that's why I find it very difficult to even have the capacity to describe God. I can only describe God in a human way. As Corey said about the throne, I use the word, the Torah uses the word throne because in our human thinking, that is the highest seat in the universe or the highest seat of a society. The king of the jungle sits on a throne. The queen bee sits on a throne. The queen ant sits on a throne. But they don't sit on the throne, but they hold the highest position in that particular community in society. With us, when we say we made something out of nothing, now we're talking about God. But when we're talking about creating, or creator, we're trying to implement, and I use the word trying, we're trying to implement God into an explanation of our human brain, which is so finite. It takes me and my wife in order to produce a child, but God created. So what we do is we produce, or we build, or we design. But when you speaking about the energy that we call God, we can only go as far as our brain lets it go. Like when you use the word light and where did light come from, that can't be explained. We can read a 1,000,000-page book, but yet light came from somewhere. Somewhere, even if we go with the Big Bang Theory, that light came from something that we can't explain. So what we call it is a bang, because that's our thinking. We didn't hear a bang. No human on the earth heard a bang and boom, now trees and grass grow. That's the only way, in the best scientific way, that I can explain to you where light came from. And in reality, that's not where light came from. That's just an explanation of what we believe where light came from. But light is something that comes from a creator. It's something that was created. It wasn't produced. We plant seeds and we produce trees. You know, we sperminate kids, and we sperminate dogs, and we produce other types of dogs, and all these different things. We produce it, and we play with it, and we're literally God to those things. But in regard to the actual creator, it really can't be explained. The word creator is just another human word of describing what we believe created us. But that doesn't do it any justice. The word light, we look at light and you look at sunlight, we look at stars, we look at the flip of the switch, but we can't describe light. And we for sure can't describe where it came from.
Brother Jared, Brother Matt, this thought just came to my mind. This question that we asked, where did God come from? It reminded me of that old, what came first, the chicken or the egg? You know what I'm saying? Because neither answer is right. You can't say the egg came first. Well, who laid the egg? You can't say the chicken, because then where did the chicken hatch out or something? Or so it's one of those questions that's outside of our capacity. I think that's what Brother Blackburn's saying. It's something that's too great for us to try to. We have to try to humanize it, dumb it down to even make sense of it. We calling him a creator. That's just a title. He's more than just that. Or us calling him a he. I mean, you know, these are things that we can understand in our low level thinking, as smart as we may be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, nah, I understand what you two brothers are saying, and I'm going to move on. But it was two main reasons why I brought that up. One is because my brother Coy, in some of your explanation, you discounted evolution because it couldn't explain what life came from, how did life begin. So what I was kind of illustrating for you guys, and what I was illustrating for the audience, is by using that logic, I can easily discount God because you cannot explain what God came from. So if evolution is invalid because it doesn't explain how life began, then God is invalid because you can't tell me where God came from. Now, whether that's right or wrong, it isn't the actual point. I was just touching on the logic of the statement used to discredit the evolution. Right, and I kind of touched on it just to see where you brothers would go. Now, I just got one more brief question for Brother Coy, but I want to address something that Blackburn said. Brother Coy, if you don't believe,
hold on, Matt. I hate to interrupt you. Don't let that question that you got for me go away. I'm gonna disappear for like a minute, maybe two, and I'm coming right back. But I still got the phone on. So I'm gonna miss this little small part you fit to do, but don't forget about the question. I'm gonna go take care of something. I'm coming right back.
All right, just let me know when you're back, okay?
Yeah, I'm gonna unmute my phone when I get right back.
Okay, cool. All right, Brother Coy, I wanna ask you this, because you didn't go into the detail about how we actually got here. I alluded to the story in Genesis, and then you alluded to we're a mix of, you know, dirt, water. I don't think you went any deeper than that. So I wanted to ask, like, specifically, so how do you think now, if it's the story that's in the Bible, I just want to know, how do you think that human beings in the form that we are, that we got here, do you take that story literally, or do you think it's a metaphor for something else? I'm just curious. How did humans get here if not evolution?
I don't think it was a metaphor whatsoever, and I do think dirt has something to do with it. Same reason why our bodies compose back into the dirt, like you spoke about earlier. Um, Hold on, Bubba. He gonna come down there. But come on. I believe that we were created. I mean, we were designed and created. So
I mean, the
Elijah,
process.
come down here.
I
He's
don't
gonna
want to
cover
cut it
that
off, but
1,000
the
times.
process.
Yeah,
Do you think God
the
physically
process.
picked up dirt, or you got
Okay.
to do something?
No. I'm listening to you. Go ahead,
Okay,
bro.
yeah, that's what I'm asking. Just go. Do you think God physically reached to the earth, got dirt and water, molded man? Like, I'm just trying to get, for me, clarity, and just for the audience. You know what I mean? Like, how do you think this happened?
Well, I can't say what I think. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna have to take it to the book, which take me a few seconds here. Let's see. Well, 126 said, and God said, let us make man in our image. So obviously this was the Most High talking amongst the angelic host. You know, some Christians believe that was Jesus and the Holy Spirit or whoever. Let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish. Okay, so he said, let us make. So they made. I mean, that's pretty much it. You know, we'll go to chapter 2. I think where it talks about the dirt and everything.
Yo.
Okay.
All right, Corey. Matt, what you got?
Well,
Yeah,
wait, hold
that's
on.
it.
Corey finna read something. I don't want to cut him off.
I'm trying to find. Okay. All right. Well, okay. That's chapter 2, verse 7. My bad. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. So that's that. I guess you can, in my mind, to explain it, I would say it's like somebody forming a clay sculpture, and not clay, but clay is pretty much mud or dirt, and breathing his spirit into that clay or that dirt, and that thing became a living being. That's it,
Okay, no, I appreciate that. I just pressed you on that for clarity for the audience, because everybody may not know what it actually says. And because sometimes we'll assume that the audience may be following us when they may not. We may have to explain it. Now, I knew what you were saying. You understand what I'm saying? But the only reason I was pressing you is for the audience that may watch this. So, Blackburn, you there? You back, Blackburn?
Yeah, man. I'm here.
All right, let me ask you a question. Do you know what a woolly mammoth is, brother?
Yes, I have seen a depiction of it. I even know that they had some frozen in time.
What is a woolly mammoth? I'm curious.
It's a elephant-looking creature.
Okay. Do you believe that they exist, right? Or do you believe that's a myth?
No, they exist. It's literally it's like a polar bear elephant. It's an elephant that's by design in a certain type of climate. That's why you have that woolly mammoth. It's an elephant with more fur, more hair on its back.
What about a saber-toothed tiger? Is that real?
Saber-toothed tigers. Yes, I believe saber-toothed tigers exist. Yes, I do believe they existed. I believe they would run it down.
Have you seen millions of bones for either of these creatures?
No, but I have seen these creatures that's been preserved in time. Woolly mammoth is one of them. Woolly mammoth has been perfectly preserved in time.
So you haven't seen millions of bones for either of these creatures, even though you know that they have existed?
Yes, you're correct.
So why do you believe that for something to have authentically existed, you would have to be able to find millions of bones?
Okay, that's a great question. My question would be, I'm gonna have to answer the question with a question, and I'm gonna try to re-answer the question. My question would be, what made the evolution come about? Why did the Neanderthals thrive in a world where human beings or Homo sapiens is the king of the world? Why did the Neanderthals die out? What humans have not died out. Humans have not ever been extinct. My question would be, we know the saber-toothed tiger went extinct. We know that the woolly mammoth no longer exists. Well, as far as we know, why would the Neanderthal fade out? Why? I mean, what made that particular species? Because we don't have species that has faded out. I mean, we have certain type of species that go extinct. But the Tasmanian devil dog, for an example, it went extinct. But you still have dogs. You still have tigers. You still have elephants. But
so you don't
we don't have
that
Neanderthals. What happened to them?
Wait a minute. So you don't even believe that Neanderthals are real? You didn't answer my question, brother. I want to say that. But you don't believe that Neanderthals are real neither?
I believe that they took, I believe, and I know a scientist is going to turn over in his grave, but I'm going to have to say it. I believe that a Neanderthal is a depiction given to a bone structure that was slightly different from a Homo sapien bone structure. I believe that if you have anything that looks, walks, and communicates as the scientific world would say a Homo sapien is a Homo sapien. I do not, I'm willing to bet baby formula money. I'm willing to bet diaper money that if I press rewind all the way, let's give it 1,000 years. Let's give it 1,000 years because we got pictures that's 1,000 years old. Let's give it 1,000 years. And if I was to press rewind and start there and press fast forward up to 2019, I'm able to find somebody that matches the Neanderthal description to a T and bones from a funeral that matches the Neanderthals to a T. So there's wrestlers and boxers that just finished getting their behind tore up that look exactly like the depiction of a Neanderthal. I'm willing to bet that because science will take something that they can't explain and explain it. And I'm not against science. Science is without a doubt a true necessity for the most part. But I don't want to get into a conspiracy because that's going to take us into midnight. And I'm not trying to go to midnight, but I know why evolution hit the textbooks. I know why evolution hit the schools. I know how the money and the governments introduced evolution.
So you're saying Neanderthals are Homo sapiens sapiens. They're just calling them Neanderthals. I want to make sure you're correct.
I'm thinking they're taking a family of people that they'll find here and there, or they'll find a group of people here and there, and it's no different than a midget. It's a midget. So I can go get you midget bones right now.
You're saying they're Homo sapiens sapiens, right? Basically. I'm
saying yes. I'm saying that those are your cousins at the cousin reunion. They right. That's what I'm saying.
Hold that. Now about the bones, because you answered my question with a question, but I want to go back to that because what I'm trying to do is touch on some of the logic of the arguments. You said that one of the reasons why you believe that if these early humans actually existed, that there would be millions of bones to verify. Yet you do not have millions of bones for other species that you accept. So what I'm saying is,
but see, here's the thing. We know it was an ice age, right? Let's put some dates on this real quick. I just want to put several ice ages. Do you believe a Neanderthal lived through any of those ice ages?
Yes.
Okay. In those ice ages, we have frozen in time. Like for an example, they describe when you go to the museum, and I've been to museums, but I think I thought I let the audience know from the get-go. I'm not an expert. I'm just using logic, maybe a little book knowledge here, a little book knowledge there, but I'm not an expert. But you go to the museum and they'll show you, or the scientists will find a frozen in time horse. And they say, well, this horse is 1,000,000 years old. Look at it. And then you go look at this horse and you look at the horse that's down the street on Tidwell, or you go look at the horse down the street on South Park. And lo and behold, this 1,000,000-year-old horse that was frozen in time, preserved for us, looks exactly the same. So then I get my black behind up and I'll go down there to a museum and I look at the horses in the museum, and lo and behold, it looked like a Statue of Liberty walking by. So
I think you're missing my point though, brother.
Go ahead.
My point is, you said that if something existed you would be able to find millions of bones proving that it existed. That's all I'm talking about. You made the claim that if it existed, you should be able to find millions of bones that prove it exists. So the only reason why I'm using these animals and why I asked you if you had millions of bones to prove that they existed, what I'm saying is that measuring stick, that if something exists, you would have to be able to find millions of bones to validate that it exists. So what I'm showing you is things can exist and not leave millions of bones proving that it exists. I'm addressing the logic of the point of species that live would leave millions of bones. That's what I'm addressing. I don't think that logic. I don't think you can use that logic to prove a point.
Okay, I see exactly where you're coming from. So let's deal with that. Let's get on that freeway. The millions of bones freeway. Okay, now we know that millions of people die. We know that their flesh is going to be consumed. So we know humans have millions of bones. We know that. I have not seen millions of human bones, but we know that when we go on the street, half the people that we see today is going to be gone tomorrow. We know that. It's not hard to verify. It's not hard to find millions of human bones. I have not seen, without a shadow of a doubt, millions of human bones. But what I have never seen is a set of Neanderthal bones. And when we in a community, and the community is battling, it's evolution versus creation, evolution versus creation. And creation has millions of Homo sapien bones that they can bring to the table. Now, if the Neanderthals live for any period of time, and I believe if I go get just your Joe Blow science book, your fifth grade science book, it's going to show that these Neanderthals probably lived for over 1,000 years, maybe 2,000, maybe even 10,000, whatever the book may say. So if I have these individuals and I got bones from the time that Neanderthals was running around, I got the species, I got the saber-tooths, I got the woolly mammoths. I should be able to find a bunch of. It shouldn't be a theory. It shouldn't be something that's a hardcore. Zoe, do not play with those weights. I'm trying to get this. Okay, don't play with those weights. It shouldn't be something that's very difficult to discover. You've seen saber-tooth tiger bones. You've seen woolly mammoth bones. You've seen them frozen in time. You've seen these individuals on scientists' tables. You've seen the description from Homo sapiens about these different species. But what we seen the drawings of them. Yes, sugar. No. Shut the door, sugar. Okay, we've seen these things, but what we have not seen, and I had to say it, man, if the Neanderthals was producing anything, which they were, because every species produce. If the Neanderthals was producing like a Homo sapien produces, we should see evidence of the reproduction. We see.
You have Neanderthal bones in more than just one country, and they have something that's called DNA, right? They have the genetic sequence of Homo sapiens sapiens, and they have the genetic sequence of Neanderthals, and the DNA shows that they are two separate species.
Okay, we'll see. We'll look at it tomorrow.
Okay.
So what you're saying about the Neanderthal being a Homo sapiens sapien isn't true based on the DNA of both of the creatures.
So let me ask you this: do you believe the DNA of a saber-tooth tiger and an Indian tiger is the same?
Yes.
No.
What?
Did you call me?
No, I didn't, sugar.
Oh.
So you don't believe that they're the same? Shut the door.
Of course not.
Okay. But so it's two tigers, one with bigger fangs and one without. And you believe that the DNA on these two animals are different?
Yes.
So why are they called tigers?
So you because that's the name that an individual applied to them. That doesn't mean that they have the exact same DNA. You can test the DNA, like you can take dogs, bro. You can take a pit bull and you can take a Doberman Pinscher. They don't have the same DNA, but they both called dogs.
So can I take a European and an African and find the same DNA?
That makes them Homo sapiens sapiens, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we Homo sapiens sapiens. Because what the DNA is like genetic code. If that Indian tiger had the same DNA as that saber tooth, it would be built the same way because that genetic code would have told it to be built the same way with the same skull structure, bone structure, teeth structure. That's one of the most obvious differences right there. If they had that same genetic code, then those teeth would come out the same.
So if I was to take a midget and a regular human being, let's take a midget and Shaq. I take Shaq DNA and a midget DNA, obviously two different bone structures, obviously two different genetic codes. Will we get the same DNA?
Well, that's the thing. For the most part, they still have the same basic skeletal structure. Because I'm gonna ask you this: do they both walk on 2 feet?
Yes, they both walk on 2 feet.
Okay, so we understand that the way their hip joint is connected, the way their knees are connected, the way their elbows are connected, the way their digits on their hands are connected, they can grasp. It's not like the midget's thumb grows on the back of his hand. It's not like the midget has a tail, but you do have variations within the same species. And you do have like someone can be born with Down syndrome, or someone can be born with I don't really want to call it a genetic defect because I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody. So an individual could be different, but they're gonna be the same Homo sapiens sapiens without a doubt. Shaq and a I don't know the political correct term, but a Shaq and a midget.
No. I feel you.
Just like, because wait a minute, no, let me say this, because you went to the extreme, you went to a midget, but Shaq bigger than you, brother. Shaq bigger than me. Shaq probably bigger than his mama. So if Shaq got a different DNA than his mama, you understand what I'm saying? Shaq may be bigger than his son. His son may never grow to be Shaq's size, but they have to be the same because that's his mama and that's his son. So,
a midget has the incapabilities of growing to a normal size human being. No disrespect towards anybody that's a midget, but we just speaking with reality. They're not going to grow to be 5 and 6 feet tall. Their head and their spinal cord is going to be different.
Will a midget automatically have a midget child, and does a midget have to have a midget parent?
So that's the question.
I'm saying a midget can have a normal sized child. That's a fact.
I know. That's what I'm saying. But the midget.
Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
The midget is not doesn't have the same bone structure as the everybody else in society. And Shaq, for an example, don't have the bone structure as everybody else in society. And you're saying that Neanderthals are different, but I don't see how a midget is classified as the same and a Neanderthal is classified as different. If you was to look at the 3 skeletons, your typical, your Neanderthal, and your midget, it would be obvious which one would be completely different. If all 3 of them died at age 30, and you say, well, this young man was midget Joe, this was Neanderthal Tim, and this was normal guy Bob. So you got three different skeletons, and the one that has the biggest variation is the midget in the normal human being. Well, not normal, but the regular Homo sapien. Whatever, but yeah.
So, but a midget and Shaq got the same Homo sapien DNA. All right, look, let me go here. All right, let's say.
But see, the reason why I'm saying it's about DNA, I'm gonna let you finish.
Okay, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
The reason I said that is because you go get a DNA test at Joe Blow's DNA, then you go get a DNA test at Tim Blow DNA, and you'll get two different DNA results.
You did what now?
If you go get a DNA test at Joe Blow's DNA test, then you go get another DNA test at Tim Blow DNA test, you might get two different results, as everybody's saying.
So you're saying one of them might tell you that you're a dog?
No. They're not gonna tell you that you're a dog. I wouldn't agree to that.
Okay. First, let's make this distinction before I go into this. You can do a maternal DNA test and test only the mitochondrial DNA and get one result, right? You can test that same individual and do an autosomal DNA test and get a different result. But that doesn't mean that that person has more than one different DNA within it. For one, you can get DNA from more than one location within the body, and you can test the DNA for specific things. You, a human being like a Homo sapien has a specific genetic code that is going to classify the Homo sapien as a Homo sapien, and you are going to be able to distinguish that Homo sapien DNA from cow DNA, from dog DNA, from tiger DNA. Yes, so it's a level of DNA that is automatically going to say that a Homo sapien is a Homo sapien. But you can test for other markers within the DNA that, let's say, if I test my mitochondrial DNA and you test your mitochondrial DNA, we're going to get different results because they're looking for something different. So while me and you know that we're both Homo sapiens, of course we search or look into and test certain aspects of the DNA to look for the differences that's in our maternal line. So I don't want to get the conversation confused saying that every Homo sapien is supposed to have the exact same DNA results no matter what you're looking for, because we have different mothers, we have different fathers, we're from different areas on the planet, and we're mixed and matched different things. But when you're talking about the broader Homo sapien species, I guarantee if we look at my DNA and your DNA, we're going to be able to determine that we're both Homo sapien.
Okay. Well, that makes perfectly good sense, of course. But
let me say, I want to cut you off.
Expert on the topic, so I'm not able to refute too much of it. I would be better looking more into the actual studies on it and looking at both sides of the picture, because as of now, I don't even know what a Neanderthal looks like. I know they exist based on scientific definition, but no, I don't even know what it looks like. So, but I'm pretty sure they look very much like human beings.
Wait, I don't want to cut you off, but we've been going for quite a long time. I just want to see real quick. Hey, Brother Coy, you want to chime in on anything, brother? You can let me know. You can jump in, man. I don't want to just leave you sitting there, brother.
No, I'm all right. I was tending to these crying kids, but I don't know if this is something I remember like I don't remember the source or where I read this, but I thought there was a group of people that have a small percent, like 0.4% or something, Neanderthal DNA. Have you heard that? I remember
Yes, I have,
something
brother.
about
Yes, I
this.
have.
Yeah,
Do you
I
agree
know.
with that?
Well, of course I do. That might be my boss.
Well, you kind of broke up. The people probably couldn't hear you. Would you mind repeating that last statement just for the audience, brother?
Not that it might be biased, but I think I believe that only because the people I don't know what the classification, what do you call those scientists or whatever that study this kind of thing, but only because the people who actually did the study and people that were being so they were told about themselves like that, it's almost embarrassing, to say you're part Neanderthal or you share Neanderthal gene DNA.
I'm glad you said that because the conversation might be a little more interesting now. Because so you believe that Neanderthals are not us, and if that's the case, I want you and Blackburn to go for a minute because I don't want to dominate the conversation. Now that I see a point of contention between you and Blackburn, it sounds like Coy is agreeing with me on this one small point that Neanderthals are not us. So I want you two brothers. I'm gonna mute my mic. Y'all unmute y'all mic and let the people hear y'all have a conversation because I don't want to dominate the conversation.
Okay. Well, my status is that I haven't seen, nor have I studied, but I'm standing on the premise that I have not seen enough of the other bone structures. Like, for an example, we're not questioning woolly mammoths. We're not questioning saber-toothed tigers. And I know it's me, and I know there's a million people that's never going to question the Neanderthal's existence, but there's a million people that are questioning, is this really a different species or is this just a human with a different bone structure? So saber-toothed tigers and elephants, woolly mammoths, even with them being having slightly variations than our 2019 tigers and elephants, they were still very much identified as tiger and elephants. I'm getting into the details. I would never be able to hold a candle to it because I don't know much about it. But my premise is that a Neanderthal is just another human being with a deformed or adaptation of a skeleton. Now, of course, I can look at it from the evolution side, and I can look at it from the creationist side. And of course, I'm leaning more towards the creationist side, and I have to look at it, which I will. Now that we had this discussion, I will look more into it. But I will also be fair in looking into it logically. I will look into what logically makes sense. So even if the creation side is trying and reaching, as they would say, trying to make this thing make sense, then it's obvious. But there's no doubt when I see a Neanderthal, there are certain people, that look, in my opinion, the same way. I don't think I have to. It's just you have more of a variation with a saber-toothed tiger that walks on four legs with a tail, got fur and sharp teeth and claws. You have more variation between a saber-toothed tiger and a 2019 tiger than you would as a Neanderthal and a Homo sapien. It's almost to the point where the difference is very small millimeters in skull size. And this is just based on my basic understanding. Maybe a little bit longer legs, maybe a little bit bigger bones. I don't know. But it's not nothing that's outrageously different. It's not nothing that's making them unrecognizable. I believe if you take a Neanderthal and clean him up, he probably could fit in our 2019 human society. So when you, it's almost like we're saying that what rings the bell is DNA. And okay, well, you know, DNA. We are still going to be at the mercy of the people that's giving us that information. Not saying they lying, not saying they telling the truth, not saying they got an agenda, not saying they don't have an agenda. What I am saying is that if I can take a Neanderthal, take him to a barber, give him a bath, give him some clothes, dress him up, and put him in 2019 society, and he will fit right in. You have to understand that's one of the main reasons why I'm questioning the topic the way I'm questioning it. So that's where I stand on that.
I understand what you're saying. I guess, bro, I the whole mental study thing. That would almost imply that I assume that Neanderthals came before humans or whatever. But I just thought it was interesting that there are certain people that pointed out the excuse why they have certain mutations they have. But see, when I think about a Neanderthal, I think about like them folks in the country, man, that sleep with each other. You know, cousins with each other, will sleep with each other. Like even the old European monarchs, you know, that kept everything within the bloodline. And you started to look and notice, you see some of the pictures, those are some really ugly people, man. And not just because of skin color or whatever, but by trying to keep things within the family tree, you could tell that that's not natural. Because just like think about what a lot of purebreds, like especially like Rottweilers or whatever, somebody want a purebred Rottweiler, usually they don't have heart problems and stuff like, because someone says, you know, somebody made it with their sister or their mama or something in order to create some pure breed. And I think just like if I wish I could, if I could just pull up some of these pictures of these monarchs that I'm talking about, you look at just some of the facial structure and the cranium structure, and just they look deformed almost, you know. And so that's what I think of when I think of Neanderthal, almost just like a barbarian, more or less than a pre-human. You know, people talk about the pre-Adamite age and all that. I'm not real big on that kind of stuff because I don't have text to go off of. So that's my stance on that. You know, it's not that I believe that humans evolved from Neanderthal. That'd be giving up ground, you know, in the creation story. But it's just that whoever these folks were, they just were barbarians, I guess, you know.
Oh, okay. I want to just jump back in for a slight second, because the DNA, that's one thing. If you look into it, the DNA shows that that we different, but we share a common ancestor. But all right, I got this book, right? African Time. Okay, and it briefly talks about some things of evolution, right? Now, one of the things that is what I told you brothers earlier, when we talk about classification of species, they make these classifications for certain reasons. Like when we was at the park and we were talking and we went into mammals, an individual will be a mammal because of A, B, C, and D. Warm-blooded, hair, gives live birth, etc., etc. So there are certain things as you break the species down more and more that make things either distinct or alike. So I went into the DNA. That's one. I don't know how you would get around the DNA, Blackburn, unless you just say you just don't believe in it and they're lying about the DNA. But also this book right here, it says when you're talking about the brain size. Now, brain size based on the cranial capacity of these fossils in the fossil record is another way that they determine whether or not they're us or not. And so in the Neanderthal, you have a brain size of 1200 to 1750 ml. I don't want to say what that ml actually means until I read it. But then in the Homo sapiens sapiens, you have a different brain. You have a different brain size. So how do you account for that?
brother. I want to just interject real quick for Black Brian. Um, I think I think he alluded to this earlier, but this whole discussion and things of this kind of scientific origin, man, or things along this line, they really wind up taking mankind away from his purpose, because now it's like we just fall up in the middle of some grand scheme or evolution roller coaster, man, and we don't know where we're going from here, and this little window of time is really meaningless. The bigger and bigger the scale gets, you know what I'm saying? And evolution is one of those things that it puts us. We talk about DNA evidence, and I mean, uh, like I say, the last 150 years, brother, so many things have supposedly been uncovered in the last 150 years. Doesn't that take away from the strength of the ancient civilizations who created the sciences and math and everything from the jump?
I think you kind of put too much weight on these ancient civilizations. We of course we have to move forward, because again, okay, if I'm talking about DNA, right, and we're talking about skeletal structures, and we're talking about evolution, if 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 your way to combat that is the ancient text that was written by ancient people who had no way of scientifically verifying whether the information that they were giving us was correct, then I think, me personally, I don't see how you could put so much weight on that, but discount scientific evidence that's being presented right now. How do you take the word of a anonymous individual several thousand years ago who we know couldn't test his theories, and we put that over individuals right now who can test their scientific theories? How?
I always say, look at the history. Look at the history of when did all these theories and when did all this stuff start coming about? When did scientists start discovering these kind of things? Um, it couldn't have been no more than the last 500 years, you know. I could be wrong, but in that case, this is not new knowledge, but I assume it's rather new knowledge on the world scene. So the last 500 years, where were my people at? What were they doing after giving the earth all this science and all this culture and civilization? Then all of a sudden somebody just came up with all it don't make sense to me, man. The advancement of the world in the last 150 years, I'm gonna keep driving that point home, that defeats evolution, because millions of years just to get to this one little speck of time and then explode in technology and advancement, it don't make sense. It's either been here before, or this world is a lot younger than we think it is.
What
In a
has
hundred
been here
years,
before?
the advancements that we see,
Like
whatever it is,
computers?
technology. Hell,
What
maybe
evidence
so.
do you have of this technology existing before right now?
Like I say, the pyramids. How in the world did they build the pyramid? Man couldn't do that right now with just manpower and Bronze Age tools. Man could
Do
not
you
build
know
those
how they built
pyramids.
the pyramids, brother?
I have no idea how they built the pyramids.
So how can you so confidently assert, you in one breath you're
Because I'm
saying,
in construction. I'm in construction, and I look at the intricacy of it. It's not something that just because somebody knew math or whatever, they was gonna have a little power to get that done. It wasn't just about the knowledge. They could have drawn it up on a papyrus, but to actually get it built, that took something different. So maybe
but
it wasn't. Go
that's what I'm
ahead, bro.
saying. In one breath, you can't say that you know how it was done, with all respect, but then say you know how it was done. You
Well,
you
I don't
can't you
say I
can't
know
say
how
it
it was
both. You
done.
can't have it both ways.
I don't know how it was done, but what I'm saying is, when I look at the advancement of the world, and I look at the last 100-something years when men was out there swinging on scaffolds or whatever, and how things have changed now. I mean, you know, if it was way more primitive, thousands or millions or whatever we want to say years ago, then how was it done? You know, if there was no technology or power involved that we uh, might think that wasn't involved, I want to know how it was done. Nobody's been able to ever explain it to me. They say, oh, aliens, or there was electricity, or whatever. I don't know, but I know there had to have been something that is not brand new on the world scene in order for those people to pull off their feet. That's not just something a bunch of slaves just, they didn't just roll rocks up hills. There's no way possible.
So technically, you can't say that it was with the type of technology that we have right now today. That's those points that I'm making.
No,
you can't say that they had to have had this technology if we're admitting we don't know how they did it.
Yeah, of course. But at the same time, nobody can explain to me how was it done. See what I'm saying? They believe that some kind of advancement that they either don't know about or just very real.
Have you ever heard of all right, you know how in North Korea, right? They're trying to they keep saying that they're trying to develop nuclear weapons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we have to understand that certain technology takes a working knowledge of other technology. You can't get to C without going through A and B. So in order to get to certain levels of technology, you have to be able to acquire other forms of technology before you can get there. So let's take a car, for instance. There's a lot of components that go into making a car. And if they don't have all of those components 1,000 years ago, they're just not going to make a car, no matter how intelligent they are. They have to know how to make the steel or fiber and or fiberglass that's on it to make it. They have to know how to make the glass for the windows. They have to know how to make the lights. They have to have electricity. They have to know how to make wires. They have to have brake fluid. They have to have the whatever tubing the brake fluid goes through. You have to be able to create an engine and all of its components. You have to have gasoline. You have to have rubber. You have to be able to form that rubber into a tire. You see what I'm saying? It's certain things that if you don't have every single element that goes into making a car, I don't care how smart you are, you're not going to be making a car. So what you have is at a certain point in history, right? For one, when multiple places on the planet Earth were connected and you had multiple different inventions in different parts of the earth, and those inventions were able to come together, you were able to create the type of technology that we have right now today, like cell phones. Cell phones that we have now, I understand what you're saying about it. I understand what you're saying about in the last 150 years, we didn't have the cell phones that we have right now. I remember my daddy telling me about a time when they didn't have TVs because they had to get prerequisite technology before they got to this point. If people in Egypt had cranes and bulldozers and things like that, first we would have to find out, did they have rubber and Kemet? And if they didn't, where did they get the rubber from? Where did they get the cement from? Where did they get the cords that were able to hold a 2-ton block for? Where did they get the material to make the crane? Where did they get the gasoline in the crane to make the crane work? So if we take modern technology and put it back in an ancient setting, I'm gonna go out on the limb here and say, okay, maybe they did. So now what I would need an individual to show me is show me the evidence of this technology, not just what we're assuming that they created with the technology, but the technology itself. Where are the cranes? Where are the modes of electricity being transferred? Where's the tires? Where's the rubber? Where's the gasoline? You understand what I'm saying? Where's the shells of these vehicles or bulldozers? Where's the remnants of this technology?
Well, what I'm not saying is that today's technology was being used back then. What I'm saying is the mind. I don't believe the mind has evolved over a couple of thousand years to where all of a sudden we were smart enough to invent stuff. Look at when.
It hasn't.
Look at just watch. Follow me. Look at the last greatest world inventions. I'm talking about inventions that just changed the whole way society even ran. Think about when they happened, who invented these things, and during what time period. Now I give you one. You said one already. What did you say? Doggy. Oh, the cell phone. A brother created the cell phone. So a North American brother created the technology for the cell phone, and so he is a descendant of a slave, being North, unless he's from somewhere else. But I don't think he was. I think he was from North America. Okay. Now the gasoline engine changed the world because now you got army tanks, you got tractors, you got vehicles. A brother created in North America. I don't know if he's an ex-slave or not. He invented the gas and combustible gasoline engine. This is just in the last couple hundred years of our people with their neck being stepped on. Another created the refrigeration system. That changed the whole world spectrum of how people live. Now you don't have to have shotgun houses and, like the island houses with the open, I forget what you call those old wood windows. But anyway, see what I'm saying? You mean to tell me people who three-fifths of a human who were taught to read, snatched away from culture, could come up with and is this just some evolution? Is evolution time is what I'm saying? Or is it just about the mind and what a man pushes his mind to? And I'm just saying whatever was used, it wasn't just hands and feet. They didn't build the pyramids with hands and feet. That's anybody that knows anything about construction, the layout on the inside, the way they made things line up with the luminaries and everything, the structural how do you call it? I guess fortitude, the structural soundness of it. I don't know the word, like not halls, but the different little chambers and whatever, all down to the ground, and none of that ever collapsed on itself. So people have it, man. And it wasn't just like me and you just getting some wood and nails and like fall apart. We put it together, did something on the grand scale, and had to have something hell either supernatural or technological. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get the point that you're making, but I'm thinking you're making a leap that we can't honestly make, because again, we just don't, we just don't know how they did it. So the minute we start trying to explain how they did it, is all kind of pitfalls that we're going to fall into. And it's like I told you, it's certain technologies that I don't care how smart you are. If you don't have the technology that precedes it, you won't be creating it. If you take that same individual who created the cell phone with the exact same intelligence that he had when he invented the cell phone, and you put him in the middle of a rainforest with nobody else, he will live and die without ever being able to create the cell phone. You want to know why? Because he does not have the components that goes into creating a cell phone. So technology rides on the back of previous technology. That's the point I'm making. I don't care how you are. I don't care how smart you are. If you don't have the technology that precedes current technology, you will not be able. It's certain elements that's in the cell phone that they have to mine from Africa. So if an individual does not have access to those minds, or if those minds have not been created yet, you will never in a million years create a cell phone, plain and simple. So that's what I'm saying. So certain technology, it comes because it's riding on the back of the technology that came before it. But again, those individuals 1,000 years ago, that's the point. They were Homo sapiens sapiens just like us. They had the exact same brain capacity. They had the exact same ability to learn that we have. Their brain size was the same. But what kept them in the level that they were in was they did not have they had to go through what they went through for us to be where we're at right now. It's like an individual trying to learn how to do algebra and they never learned their numbers. You will never do algebra if you can't count to 10. You know, you can't spell if you don't know the alphabet. So it's prerequisite to knowledge. That's all it is. At the point that we're at, we have as a species, for one, the planet is connected. So we're getting that time period that you're talking about. The planet was more connected than it ever was before. That's why you see some of this boom. We're able to get inventions and things from North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and the human ingenuity around the planet and the human discoveries around the planet were able to be put together and start to create the society that we have through trade and commerce. Like I said, that cell phone, had it not been for a certain material that was mined in Africa, that individual never would have created a cell phone if those two continents were not connected, or if an individual wasn't in that mind. But that, like I say, but that doesn't go back to, I don't think to say that they had to have a specific type of technology to create the pyramids. Yes, the pyramids are there, so we know that they did it, right? We can't dispute that. But when you talk about the pyramids, honestly, bro, that's almost like I work out in the refineries, right? And it's certain things that are out there that take multiple sciences and multiple individuals that are experts and masters in their craft to create one thing. When you're looking at something like a pyramid, you have to have somebody, for one, somebody that's a master in the craft of astrology. You have to have somebody that's a master in the craft of stone cutting. You have to have somebody that's a master in the craft of geology. Where can you place these stones? What type of stone can support a structure of that magnitude? How do you cut the stone? How do you smooth the stone? So you have to be a master in several different fields. We're talking about people that was masters in geometry, chemistry. We're talking about people that was masters in astrology, people that was masters in several different sciences that came together and figured out how to accomplish that. Now, if we're not even a master in one of those fields, we're never going to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? It's always it's like a space shuttle. To somebody like me, I can't explain how a space shuttle works, or this computer that we're talking on. I can't break down every component that's in this computer, because it's always going to take individuals with multiple different levels of expertise, right? But what I want to go back to is like with the whole topic of evolution, I see where you're coming from. Your perspective is you're going off of the text, and I want to ask you something. Do you believe the text because you believe that the individuals in that ancient civilization had supreme knowledge and understanding, as in they were that studied, were that learned to be able to explain how humans created, or are you taking their word that God gave them this information? Because that's key. Do you believe the information because it came from God? Or do you believe the information because you think that ancient man was so intelligent that he figured it out on his own?
I believe the information because I believe it came from the Most High. And the reason why is because I used the method that, people should use, which is the scientific method. And based on what I see and taste and touch and hear and smell, uh, what I'm reading about whatever you can find scientific, the earth, the animals, or whatever I'm reading in the scripture, it makes sense. It makes scientific sense. And what the theories that I read about in science don't make sense to me. So that's my answer on that. It's not necessarily because I believe man has some kind of advanced understanding. That's the excuse people use where they'll say, "Well, how come the scriptures say the sun and the moon is moving, or the moon was caused to stop over the valley of such and such?" Well, why did it say that? Oh, well, man was so primitive back then, he didn't realize that Earth was actually spinning and not the sun and moon. Well, then that either puts everything into dumb man, or that takes away from who's supposed to be the wise creator. That he's so wise, but he won't tell his creation anything about his creation, and so they got to be dumbfounded until millions of years later, when then some people come along after. You see what I'm saying? I always take it back to this timeline, man. When our folks are sitting over here getting whipped on, then all of a sudden these people come up with all these fancy advancements in the last 4, 5, 600 years, So to me, it's a load of crap. I just, if I can't touch it, taste it, uh, they say the earth, I know this is a whole nother topic, but the earth is supposed to be spinning in like 2 or 3 different directions and all these different miles an hour, but I don't feel nothing. So until somebody can prove to me that I am feeling something, uh, I got to go with what the scripture says, which the earth is immovable. He set it upon pillars and blah, blah, blah. And even though I can't describe these pillars, well, that makes sense to me because when I wake up and my feet hit the ground, I don't feel like I'm in any kind of motion. I think even a blind man, if he's in some kind of rotating device, or if he's in a room and the room is spinning, even if it's moving real slow, I think that blind man wake up out of his sleep and stand up, his equilibrium is going to let him know he's moving. You see what I'm saying? Or something. So it's all, when I look up, it looked like the stars are moving. It don't look like we spinning all out of control. The same set of stars that we see now, people stargaze, the same set of stars that's been recorded thousands of years ago. So um, I don't put it all in man's hand, but at the same time, if I'm believing that my creator uh, is going to withhold all kind of information, and then just evil men of this earth can just unearth stuff over time, I mean, damn, I might as well throw the book away, brother. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that like cussing at you, but I'm just saying that if it was that easy for me to just say, well, dang, yeah, I guess the Israelites and whoever back then were so primitive, they didn't know no better. Good thing we had these good folks to come along and tell us the truth. If I thought that was the truth, I would. I'd burn my book. But the things that I read in it, I can see evidence of, like we're saying about evolution or whatever. I see things evolving. I see things producing after their own kind. I, I'm only gonna live maybe less than 100 years, but I don't think I'll ever see any species morph or start to change. Like I won't see humans grow fins, or fish start to breathe air, or whatever. In my
Have
lifetime.
you have you ever seen a human being created from the dust of the earth?
No, sir.
Have you ever seen a woman created from the rib of a man?
No, but I've seen a child created from something that I can't see.
No,
Uh,
but what I'm saying is, if that's honestly, that can't be your prerequisite. You haven't seen it, so it can't be real, because the things that's talked about in the Bible, you haven't seen that either. I I personally think,
well,
and
I
I
was
don't
just saying as far as creation and life and things like that. Not necessarily God himself or whatever.
but what I'm saying is, but what I'm saying is you said that you've never seen a species evolve from one to the next, but you've never seen a species created from the dust of the ground either. So you've never visually verified either of these stories. But
Yeah.
but what I think it is, and I don't knock
And
you
that's why I
for it.
say the dust of the ground part. I mean, I can give, if that came not to be true, fine. But no, there's no way nobody can convince me that this was not. I don't know how to say it, if it's divine design or intelligent design, or I don't know the proper word. But this was specifically a design. It wasn't just it wasn't just an evolvement of some basic, you know, life form or whatever. I don't believe that.
But yet you would believe that a God that is more intricately designed than us has no creator. If God needs no creator, the universe needs no creator. God is more advanced,
Well, there you
way
go
more
back to the
advanced.
chicken before the egg thing, you know.
I
That,
think now it's not the chicken before the egg. I'm only speaking to the logic of the
it's
argument.
who created the creator.
If we say creation denotes a creator, if
Mm-hmm.
that's the premise, if that's not my premise, that's yours,
Mm-hmm.
then you are also saying that someone had to have created God. That's
No,
the point. If
that would be an argument that could be used, but that's not what I would say because
that's the so God, if God needs no creator, then the universe needs no creator by the logic. But I think
I mean,
no, you don't have to accept it, which
that
I
would
get.
mean God is the universe. I mean, I guess.
But okay, but what I'm saying is, and I don't knock you for it. But I think what you're doing is you already accepted in your heart that the Bible came from God, that the information in there came from God. Now, once if you accept that before you even start, then of course we're going to have the kind of conversation that we're having. And I don't knock that because I'm starting from the perspective of the Bible did not come from God. So we all have to start somewhere. I get that. So I'm not knocking you for that. But what I'm saying is if you didn't view the Bible as in the Bible came from God, I would assume that you would have a different outlook on some of the information that you actually see in the Bible.
I got
Because
what you're
some of the same logic that you apply to the information outside the Bible can be applied to the information in the Bible. But since you accept the Bible as the word of God, then that has to be true. So you're looking for verification that that's true. Case in point with you've never seen a species evolve, but you've never seen someone created from dust, and you've never seen a woman created from a rib. So why would you accept that story, which you haven't seen, before you'll accept the evolution, which you haven't seen? Is because you believe that story came from God. That's what's at the heart of it. This information, in your opinion, came from God. That's what's gonna have you locked in, which I
Well,
understand.
it's just like if somebody believes in evolution, well then who's the father of evolution? I mean, wasn't evolution theorized by somebody? Then somebody make, you know, there has to be a father of evolution. I'm sure I could Google it, find a man's name.
Yes, a
Somebody.
human, any theory, any piece of information, anything that we know, anything that we've read, anything that we've seen has come from the mind of a man. I'll accept that.
Well, but what I'm saying is, who do you know who created that theory, the evolution theory?
Well, the theory of evolution itself, the idea that things evolve and change, you can go back thousands of years with that. But I know what
I'm
you're
saying, I
alluding
mean,
to.
the single
No,
cell thing, you know,
hear me,
what we quote. Who created that?
hear me out. I know what you're alluding to. I just wanted to throw that out there first. I think you're
Oh,
alluding to
oh.
Charles Darwin. Is that correct?
I assume that's him, but I'm not sure. I don't know the guy's name, whoever he is. I know when it comes to these kind of things that there's some man who kind of set the record for, okay, this is Darwinism, this is what gravity is, this is what, you know, even
Yeah,
if it had been believed in ancient times, some man, and what I was trying to do is put a time stamp on Darwin, you know, around what time was Darwin living,
that's
if that's
that's
the
that
guy.
that's what I was about to say. Darwin himself, he was not the first person to allude to evolution. What Darwin really should be known for is purporting or promoting one of the mechanisms by which evolution works. They was already accepting, or certain people in the scientific community already was accepting that life forms change over time. But the question was how. So it's the mechanisms that make evolution work. And so what he proposed was evolution by natural selection. That's more specifically what he should be known for. But that's another point. So what I'm saying is everything we have come from humans.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have the only thing we can look at is true enough, we are going to believe something. So is what evidence do we have that backs up these particular ideas and theories and stories that we accept? That's why in the beginning I said, okay, whether the theory of evolution is right or wrong, I'm saying I believe it because of the fossil records and the fact that I know things can change over time. You have different variations of Homo sapiens right now. You have all these different species, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so the the other side of the story or the discussion between me and you is what's found in the Bible, that God created man from the dust of the ground, and then he created woman from the rib of man. So what we would have to get to now is, okay, even if all of the fossils are incorrect, the DNA, if that's incorrect, if it's all live, if it's all made up, then granted. But what evidence would you have to support the man coming from the dust of the ground, God created man from the dust of the ground,
Yeah,
and
that
woman coming from the rib of man, in place of the fossil record, the DNA, in the multiple species that's on the planet right now? What evidence do you have?
there's no evidence of something like that, you know. But like I say, when we talk about DNA evidence, carbon dating, and all this kind of stuff, um, you get into the millions of years old. This artifact is millions of years old. That just helps destroy the creation story, which helps make man feel like, well, there can't be a God then, uh, you know. You know what I'm saying? I mean, all this just takes away from God. It wipes God out of the picture. If God said, I created one earth and all life is on earth, and then man come along and say, well, no, there's millions of different galaxies and there's different life forms all over. You'll never see none, but they're there. Well, am I foolish for believing man was created from the dust of the earth? Or you see what I'm saying? The atheist, he don't believe in a God whatsoever, but he believes in a solar system. He believes that he revolves around the sun. He ain't never seen none of it. You know what I'm saying? And so there is a level of faith with it, man. But I still, the only reason I chose to cling on to my book is because I found truth in it. The things that I seen written in it, not the stories that people consider allegory, but I mean the do's and don'ts, the moral code. You know, certain things make sense. You know, if there was a creator and he did create all the animals, when he says certain animals aren't good for your consumption, and I look into the scientific reason of why, it makes perfect total sense. Everything he said don't eat, they got a job on the earth, and it ain't for you to eat. They supposed to be like trash compactors of the earth, you know. But until you look into the scientific reasons why, it just sounds like a bunch of do's and don'ts. So even with something that's simple, I found I guess guidance, you know what I'm saying, in the scriptures. Now when we get to the real ancient Adam and Eve stories. And I mean, hell, I couldn't act like I was there. I couldn't act like there was an actual serpent speaking to a woman and that she actually bit some fruit. You understand what I'm saying? These things could be allegory, but hell no, it ain't no evidence, brother. I wouldn't even
So,
try
all
that.
right, you don't believe in the New Testament, correct?
Depending on what you mean by believe in. I mean, I believe it's there.
But
Yes,
do
sir.
you believe the information contained within is accurate
I tell you
information?
this. I tell you this. I do not believe Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. The scholars even say that I don't think the first writings of the New Testament were even written until around 70 AD. You know, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think the brothers started writing. Whoever wrote the Gospels and the epistles, they didn't get to starting until around the destruction of Jerusalem. If it wasn't 70, it was somewhere right before or right after.
Let me ask you this. Honest answer. Honest answer.
Hmm. Yes, sir.
Do you objectively look at the Bible? Like, do you assume that, or the Torah, the Old Testament, do you assume that it could be wrong? Or do you automatically, unequivocally already accept that everything in it has to be factual? Or do you ever go in it and wonder, man, you know what? Even though it's in here, even though it's written, it could be wrong. Do you allow that thought to cross your mind or not?
Yeah, but and that's how I was able to find error in the New Testament. But whenever I've tried to find that same error in the Old Testament, now see now when you talk about like speaking donkeys and man getting sucked up to heaven in a whirlwind, that's a whole nother monster. I believe it because I believe there's nothing too great for a creator who can create everything to do. You know, it's just way more simple when you believe in a creator for stuff like that, not to be far fetched. But as
How do
far,
you?
go ahead, brother.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Now
no,
go
no,
ahead.
no. I ain't had nothing else. I'm just.
Okay. All right. I just noticed something.
Hmm.
You mentioned that the New Testament was written later than when it was said to have been written, or something to that effect, after 70 AD or something like that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
How are you placing that date on the writings of the New Testament, but yet you're discrediting the methods used to date these fossils? Where are you getting that date from?
Scholars. I don't know where they got the date from. I don't. I mean, did they do carbon dating on the scrolls? Hell, I thought they just based on where they found the stuff at, they tied it to a certain time period. I don't know how they
So
did
you
it.
do believe in some form of dating?
Yeah, but
Or do
see, now if you told me that these dates that I got for these scrolls are carbon dating or whatever, then I'd have to disagree then, because that to me, I don't know how they got the timeline for the scripts we got.
so,
I have no idea.
but you use those dates.
Well, but see, I'm saying I did use them. Only reason I brought the dates up was to say I can tell based on what's written that this was not written, first of all, for a Jewish audience, and second of all, was not written during the time of, you know, who they call Jesus Christ. It couldn't have been.
So see, this go back to what I was telling you earlier. Either you accept dating methods or not, because some of these dates, some of these dating methods that you can use, today's quote unquote scroll, individuals use some of these same dates that may dispute the 6,000 year claim, but you won't accept it then, but you'll accept it in this instance of the New Testament.
Well, see, okay,
That's kind of odd to me.
explain to me how are things dated?
Well,
How?
you use the date, brother.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but explain to me, how are things dated?
Well,
What's,
there's several different ways, but what I'm saying is, what's the better question is, how do you think that they dated those New Testament manuscripts? Because apparently you accept that dating method. So whatever dating method that is, you've already accepted it.
that's what I'm saying. I didn't think that they use any kind of dating, like scientific thing. I just thought that, oh, we found this in this such and such tomb, which that from this such and such period. I didn't think that there was no kind of science behind it. I have to look into that.
But that's what I'm saying. The it's always going to be a reason why they're dating something to a particular time. The same way they may say that this happened in 300 BCE. There's various methods that they can use to say that. If they say something happened in 1200 BCE, there's certain reasons why they're going to say that. But they're also going to say if something happened in 4000 BCE, there's reasons why they're going to use that. And if they say that things were happening in 4000 BCE, that's 6,000 years ago, it's going to challenge that 6,000 year assumption. So the question now would become, if there are certain dating methods that you would trust, if an individual was to figure out what dating methods you trust, and if someone were to show you that those dating methods show that we've been around longer than 6,000 years, would you then concede that this 6,000 year thing is wrong? Or would you say that because the Bible came from God, that the 6,000 year thing is still correct?
So I have to look into how things are dated, because I don't think the way mankind dates bones and fossils, they do the same thing for paper, but I don't know. That's why I was asking.
No, that's why I'm asking you. Is different dating methods, but there are dating methods that you trust. That's the point. So I'm trying to figure out which dating methods
I got no choice.
trust.
I have no choice, because like you asked the question, how old is the Earth? Well, I got to go based on what the scholars say, because what else can I do? I cannot go backwards in time. You see what I'm saying? So everybody is faith. Faith comes into play real big when you get to talking about stuff like this, the age of the Earth. It's on based on what you believe. You're only gonna believe based on what information you got, or what information you believe. If you believe the scientists, you believe the scientists. If I believe a text, I believe a text. Or if we believe some kind of myth or something, or we just make up our own reality. But it's always some kind of faith involved.
Do you accept the date that the Kemetic civilization goes back to at least 3100 BCE?
3100 BCE. I mean, I guess so. Yeah. That don't sound too
Now,
far.
okay, so what I'm saying is that's like 1,000 years after Adam, according to your chronology. And Adam lived around 900 and something years, right? So do you believe that there was an Egyptian society when Adam's children were still alive?
No. I don't think so. No. Egyptian.
But but what I'm saying, if Adam lived over 900 years, and the Egyptian civilization,
that's what I say. I could be wrong on the time I'm giving the Earth. I don't know. Somebody out there in the internet land knows the actual number, but there's a number, because the Jews have their own little calendar.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. No, but I just want to. Let's just focus on what we already accept. I just want to see something. So if the Earth goes back 6,000 years, and let's put Adam at 6,000 years ago, that would be 4000 BCE. Adam lived over 900 years, right? Now, if we put the Kemetic civilization back to 3100 BCE, that will make the Kemetic civilization run into Adam at over 900 years. Are you with me so far?
Okay.
You with me
Based
so
on
far? You
yeah, yeah.
understand the
Based
numbers that
on
I'm using, right?
yeah, I got you.
Okay. But it also says, according to the story, Adam was before the flood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Egyptians didn't come till sometime after the flood, right?
Uh-huh.
But if the Egyptians was at 31 BCE, then they obviously existed before the timeline for the flood. You follow that logic. You see how I got there?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So could the earth really be, or could even people, could they really be only 6,000 years old? Could that really be factual?
Well, I could ask the same question. Is it factual that the Earth is millions of years old? Well, based on my evidence, yes, yes, yes. Well, but then that evidence is subjective, man. Maybe not to the scientific community, but this thing can't be millions of years old. You mean to tell me in millions of years, like I said, we finally got to this point, we finally evolved to this point where we stopped riding horseback everywhere and finally got electricity and stuff? Just don't make
You,
sense, man.
I told you, you need certain technology before you have other technology. There's you understand what I'm saying? You wouldn't have a cell phone until you invented all of the components for a cell phone. Just because you're smart enough to invent a cell phone, if you don't have the materials for a cell phone, you'll never invent it. It doesn't matter how much time it takes. If you was to kill right now with how smart we are, right? If you was to kill 90% of the population, we will revert back to none of this stuff. Nobody will be able to create TVs, computers, cell phones, cars. It would be as if none of this stuff ever existed. If you was to kill 90% of the earth, it's almost like we would have to start over again. You definitely wouldn't be able to create a cell phone if you couldn't get the minerals that they're getting from Africa. That's the point that I'm making. So with technology, fam, you technology builds on technology that existed prior to that. So you're always going to have technology in the current civilization that's better than the civilization before it, because you're building on that technology. Just like computers weren't always as efficient as they are right now. They had to start somewhere. And just like those older computers where the data processors took up an entire room, and now you can have a computer in the palm of your hand in the form of a phone. Before they had the computers with data processors that took up an entire room, someone had to create the components for that before you could use it. It's not only about intelligence, it's about the development of the technology to that point. So where we're at now, we have access to a lot of things that allow us to create this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I,
But
st- I still just, my major issue is the boom of everything. You mean to tell me from 3100 BC all the way to 2019, uh, uh, common era, I guess you want to call it, mankind has just been stagnant, or mankind has been slowly building upon technology upon technology. But what has been that greatly advanced in all those thousands of years? The greatest advancement has happened in the last couple hundred years,
the
and
world
that's
has been
is proving my
connected.
point. But the world was connected whenever they were world superpowers.
That's not
You
true.
know what I'm saying? I mean, Africa always had its minerals, and I mean, gold and stuff was always mined up out of Africa, and there were ships that traveled the earth. I don't think this North America or the Americas are some brand new found place. You know what I'm saying? I think people sojourned here a long time ago, and the world was connected a long time ago. But I could be wrong. But that's what I'm saying. It's like mankind was moving that slow. I mean, all the technologies of the ancient world just kind of flatlined until the time when we was over here in slavery, or right before. And all of a sudden, people started coming with all these great ideas and thoughts, and the back of our labor created the next world superpower. You know what I'm saying? I think the ideas and all that was just already there. They just didn't have no damn money. But
I hear what
that's
you're
my
saying.
theory on it.
Nah, I feel you. I feel you. And all right, we're gonna go ahead on and kind of wrap it up so we can end this
Yes, sir.
session. Man, hey, real good discussion, real good bill. I appreciate you sitting there with me as long as you did. But before I go into the closing, I think Blackburn done kind of got sidetracked. I think he's doing something at home, or he would have came in by now. But just before I
Mm-hmm.
assume, Blackburn, are you still there? Do you want to say anything before we close out? I don't think he's there though, personally. All right, yeah,
I don't
just like
think
I thought.
so.
I think Blackburn had to go do something. So what I'm going to do, I'm gonna just give you a few minutes. You can just say a few closing statements to the audience, reiterate a few points, and just close out. Take as much time as you need. Then I'm gonna close out. Then we'll go ahead and end this one. And I think it was a good live. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, good bill, brother, man. I just like I say, man, my stance is always gonna be a more or less a faith-based stance. So a lot of these things, man, when it comes down to dates and historical accuracy, I'm not gonna really be able to hold much weight. But I always enjoy the build. I enjoy the challenge because iron sharpen iron, like the scripture says. So a wise man, if you want to look at it just in a more African proverbial way, a wise man sharpen a wise man. So just trying to stay sharp and stay learning, man, and give me a little more research to do because I do need to look into how this dating is. Because now I need to know what is the actual biblical timeline. I thought it was about 7,000 years, but I need to see how do they come up with the dating for stuff like scrolls, things that are written on paper. Because I always thought it just had something to do with uh, where it was found and what era they could tie that place to or whatever. But it obviously has to be some kind of dating system. So next time a brother or next time we had this kind of conversation or somebody else asks me these kind of questions, I want to be able to have better answers, man. Or just say all together, I don't trust it all together. But peace and love, family. Shalom.
Okay. And just to have say my little ending piece. Appreciate you sitting on here with me this long. I appreciate you sharing your ideas, and I appreciate the level of respect that we showed each other throughout this dialogue, even though we've been disagreeing from the beginning. Because that's what we have to learn how to do. We have to learn how to disagree with respect and just put information out there. And I will say this: there are different methods that you to date, and I'm well aware that certain dates that they apply to certain things may be wrong, family. And my opinion is, I tend to try to just lean with whatever has the most evidence. If you show me evidence for what you're claiming, I'll lean more toward that. Now, if I see evidence that contradicts that emphatically, then I'm going to lean towards the new evidence. I'm gonna try to follow where the evidence leads. So I appreciate y'all sitting in. I appreciate y'all listening. I'm glad we got one for the archive. This is actually going to be the first of many discussions. This is our first time doing this Google Hangouts, our live. So we're just getting familiar with it. Hopefully in the future we can start doing a few screen shares so we can show some of the stuff we're talking about. If we start talking about Neanderthals and fossils and verses in the Bible, we can actually start pulling those up and showing you these things while we're actually talking about it. I think that'll make it a whole lot better. So I don't think anybody will just sit and watch this all the way straight through. So if you made it to the end, I appreciate it. These are my brothers, even though we don't agree. Ricky, if you ever see this, you got the track shoes on. You never came in, so we couldn't touch Chris.
Uh-huh.
So I apologize about the title, but shalom and Hotep, and we'll see y'all again, man. Y'all have a good night, everybody.